Wind howled, rain lashed against the window panes. The old house groaned, timbers straining against the fury of the storm. Lightning flashed, momentarily illuminating the desolate landscape. The house, perched atop a windswept hill, seemed to cower in the face of nature's wrath. It was a house that had seen better days, its once bright paint now peeling and faded. Shutters hung askew like broken wings. The garden, long neglected, was a tangle of overgrown weeds and thorns. This was the home I had inherited from my grandparents, a place filled with childhood memories, both fond and unsettling. Now, shrouded in the darkness of the storm, it felt alien, menacing. I sat by the fireplace, the flames casting flickering shadows that danced across the room. The fire offered little comfort against the oppressive chill that had settled over the house. Outside, the storm raged on, an unrelenting symphony of wind and rain. I had arrived only hours earlier, hoping to find some peace, some solace in the familiar surroundings of my childhood. Instead, I found myself on edge, a knot of unease tightening in my stomach. A sudden gust of wind rattled the windows and I started, my heart pounding in my chest. I chided myself for being foolish. It was just the storm. There was nothing to be afraid of. And yet, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was not alone. The grandfather clock in the hallway chimed midnight. The sound, usually comforting and familiar, echoed through the silent house like a death knell. As the last chime faded, it was replaced by another sound, a knock. 3 distinct raps on the front door. I froze, my breath catching in my throat. Who would be out on a night like this? Who would even attempt to navigate the treacherous road that led to the house? I sat there for a moment, paralyzed by indecision. The knocking came again, more insistent this time. My mind raced, trying to come up with a rational explanation. Slowly I rose from my chair and made my way to the front door, each step heavy with apprehension. The floorboards creaked underfoot, their familiar groans now amplified in the stillness of the house. As I neared the door, I could have sworn I heard a soft whisper, just beyond the threshold. It was a sound I couldn't quite place, a mix of rustling fabric and hushed voices. I reached for the doorknob, my hand trembling. Taking a deep breath, I threw open the door. The porch was empty. The wind howled in my ears, driving rain into my face. I leaned out, searching the darkness for any sign of life, but there was nothing. The road was deserted, swallowed by the shadows. Disappointment, quickly followed by a surge of relief, washed over me. I'd been letting my imagination run wild. It was just the storm playing tricks on me. I turned to go back inside when something caught my eye. A face, staring at me from the living room window. It was there for a fleeting moment, a pale, gaunt visage framed by the darkness within. And then, it was gone. My blood ran cold. I stumbled back, my heart hammering in my chest. There was someone or something inside the house with me. Panic surged through me. My heart pounded in my chest, each beat echoing like a drum in the silence of the night. The darkness seemed to press in from all sides, suffocating and relentless. I could barely see a few feet in front of me, and every shadow seemed to hide a lurking threat. I fumbled in my pocket for my phone, my fingers clumsily trying to dial for help. The screen's faint glow was a small comfort, but my hands were shaking so badly that I could barely hit the right buttons. Each failed attempt only heightened my sense of dread, but the storm had knocked out the power, leaving me cut off, alone. The wind howled outside and the rain battered against the windows like a relentless drumbeat. Lightning flashed, illuminating the room in brief, stark bursts, casting eerie shadows that danced on the walls. I had to get out of the house. The walls felt like they were closing in, and the air was thick with an oppressive weight. I stumbled towards the door, my mind racing with thoughts of escape. I raced through the darkened rooms, my breath coming in ragged gasps. Each step felt like a struggle, and the darkness seemed to cling to me, slowing me down. My lungs burned, and my legs felt like they were made of lead. The shadows seemed to writhe and twist around me, taking on menacing shapes. They moved with a life of their own, and I couldn't shake the feeling that they were watching me, waiting for the right moment to strike. Every creak of the floorboards, every rustle of leaves against the windows, sent shivers down my spine. The house was alive with sounds, each one more terrifying than the last. I felt like I was being hunted, and the fear was almost paralyzing. Finally, I reached the back door. My hands were trembling as I reached for the handle, desperate to escape the nightmare that had engulfed me. The door was my only hope, my last chance to get away. I fumbled with the lock, my fingers slick with sweat and rain. The metal was cold and unyielding, and it felt like an eternity before I managed to turn the key. My heart was racing, and I could hear my own breath, loud and ragged in the silence. Just as I managed to get the door open, I heard a voice. It was faint at first, barely more than a whisper, but it sent a chill down my spine. I froze, my hand still on the door, my mind racing with fear and confusion. "Don't leave me," it whispered, the sound raspy and filled with a chilling sadness. The voice was haunting, and it seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. It was a plea, a desperate cry that tugged at my heart. It came from the shadows at the bottom of the stairs. I turned slowly, my eyes straining to see through the darkness. There, in the dim light, I saw a figure, barely more than a silhouette, standing motionless. The air was thick with tension, and I knew that my life would never be the same again. I froze, my hand still on the doorknob. Terror threatened to overwhelm me, but something in the voice, a note of desperation, of longing, held me captive. Slowly I turned to face the darkness. "Who's there?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. Silence met my question. The only sound was the pounding of my own heart and the relentless fury of the storm outside. I took a hesitant step towards the stairs, then another. "What do you want?" I asked, my voice trembling. The air grew heavy, charged with an unseen energy. I felt a presence, cold and oppressive, closing in around me. And then I saw her. She stood at the bottom of the stairs, bathed in the faint moonlight filtering through the window. The light cast an ethereal glow around her, making her appear almost otherworldly. A young woman, her face pale and drawn, her eyes filled with a deep, abiding sadness. It was as if the weight of the world rested on her fragile shoulders. She was dressed in a white gown, tattered and stained, as though she had been buried in it. The gown fluttered slightly, as if moved by an unseen breeze, adding to the eerie atmosphere. She reached out a hand towards me, her touch as cold as ice. The chill seemed to seep into my very bones, sending shivers down my spine. "Don't you recognize me?" she whispered, her voice barely audible, yet filled with a haunting familiarity. "It's me, Sarah." Recognition dawned in her eyes, and with it, a wave of sorrow so profound that it threatened to drown me. Her gaze seemed to pierce through the veil of time, connecting us in that moment. This was Sarah, my childhood friend, who had drowned in the lake all those years ago. Memories of our time together flooded back, bittersweet and poignant. Fear gave way to a strange sense of peace. It was as if, in that moment, I understood that she meant no harm. She was seeking something, a resolution perhaps. Sarah was trapped, unable to move on. Her spirit lingered, bound by unfinished business, by the unresolved pain of her untimely death. And I, somehow, was the key to her release. The realization hit me like a tidal wave. I had to help her find peace, to free her from this limbo. It was a daunting task, but one I knew I had to undertake. The storm raged on, its fury unmatched, as if the heavens themselves were in turmoil. The wind howled through the trees, bending them to its will, and the rain lashed against the windows with a relentless ferocity. But inside the house, a profound stillness settled. The walls, though old and worn, seemed to absorb the chaos outside, creating a sanctuary of eerie calm. The air, thick with dread moments before, now held a heavy silence. It was as if the house itself was holding its breath, waiting for something to happen. The atmosphere was filled with a quiet sorrow. Sarah's touch, though chilling, held no malice, only a desperate yearning for peace. Her presence was a reminder of the pain and longing that lingered within these walls. Her eyes, filled with a deep sadness, spoke of a story untold, a life unfinished. There was a desperation in her gaze, a plea for understanding and solace. I stayed with her until dawn, listening to her story, offering what comfort I could. Her voice, though faint, carried the weight of years of sorrow and regret. I reached out, trying to bridge the gap between our worlds, offering what little solace I could. It was a moment of connection, a brief respite from her eternal torment. As the first rays of sunlight pierced through the darkness, she faded away, a look of peace finally settling upon her face. The storm subsided, leaving behind an eerie calm. The house stood silent, the shadows retreating with the darkness. I left that morning, the memory of Sarah's sad eyes forever etched in my mind. The midnight knock had chilled me to the bone. but it had also opened my eyes to a world beyond our own, a world where even in death, there is a longing for connection, for resolution. The house on the hill, it stands there still, a silent sentinel, a reminder that some doors are not meant to be opened, some secrets better left undisturbed. As I walked away, the weight of the night's events pressed heavily on my mind. The house, with its secrets and sorrows, had left an indelible mark on my soul. The midnight knock had been a harbinger of the unknown, a call to witness the unseen. It had brought me face to face with the mysteries that lie beyond our understanding. In that moment I realized that the world is full of unseen forces, of spirits seeking closure, of souls yearning for peace. It was a profound revelation, one that would stay with me forever. Even in death, there is a longing for connection, for resolution. The house on the hill stands as a testament to this truth, a silent witness to the stories of those who have passed on. And as I walked away, I couldn't help but feel a sense of gratitude for the experience. It had opened my eyes to a world beyond our own, a world where the past and present intertwine, where the living and the dead coexist. The house on the hill? It stands there still, a silent sentinel, a reminder that some doors are not meant to be opened, some secrets better left undisturbed. Some doors are not meant to be opened, some secrets better left undisturbed. The house remains, a silent guardian of its mysteries, a testament to the enduring power of the past. And as I left, I knew that I would never forget the lessons I had learned, the stories I had heard, and the spirits I had encountered. The house remains, a silent witness to the passage of time, a keeper of secrets, a guardian of memories.